Greetings again. This is Dr. Bill Wyatt with the American Orthodontic Society. And a question was asked, where do we put the loop when you're trying to upright a molar? And the uprighting molars, the same thing as ectopically erupting molars, are molars that are leaning down and come in under deciduous teeth. And if you don't do them while they're young and start, then this creates a real problem. And this is why I am pushing that pediatric departments in schools all over the world, I don't care where you are, the pediatric dentist should know some orthodontics and should do orthodontics. And that is a fact. And I want to bring that home. The people here in the United States, I talked to one of my favorite friends who's a really super pediatric dentist, and the schools are not teaching that. They won't even let us come in there for their annual meeting and put on some program on how to do orthodontics. It is time the pediatric dentist stood up and went ahead and did what is correct to do. So watch what we're doing on this little girl. I'll show you where to put the loop. And on this, I'm going to have to touch it here and get it going. All right. The question was, can you show how to place the posterior loop? And this is a wire that you make. It's a real simple, easy thing to do, and it should be done by everybody that works on children. And the same thing works for just uprighting the tooth in the open. So let's get started, and let me show you how neat this works. And you can do it. You have to do it on the side of the tooth. So here is a neat little girl. Her mother, I don't know whether she worked for me, but she worked for a dentist that I had in the class for a long time. Neatest little gal, and we carried on and laughed with her and enjoyed working on her. And she had an ectopically erupting 6-year molar on the lower right side of her mouth. And here is what we did. We built a spring, and you've got to put a loop over on the side of the tooth that's ectopically erupted. So you had a place in here, and you put the spring in here, and these springs are made 2 different ways. If you got plenty of room up above, and she did, then you make the loop up above. It's simpler to make. If the tooth is fairly high and the loop that you make, or the spring part that you make, will be too high, you make the spring lower. I'm going to show you how to do both of them, and that's the way you upright ectopically erupting teeth, or on anybody. I don't care, they can be my age, and you can still upright a tooth if you've got the bone structure there to do. And I've got cases in here of adults way on down the line that should be taught, and dentists everywhere ought to know how to upright teeth. I don't care whether you're doing much orthodontics or not. And if you know it can be done, don't put a bridge on a tooth that's leaning over like this. Straighten the thing up and put it in, or straighten the crown up and pull it up and close the space in here. It can be done, and that's what dentists ought to know how to do. And so I've been all around over the world and I'm living longer than I thought I would, and I'm still want to correct these problems that are going on here. Now let's watch what actually happens when this tooth is in there. Now that 6-year molar was eating well, there it is. Now it is set that molar up right there and you can't see it too good until I get into the x-rays of it, but the molar is leaning down here, something like this, under the deciduous tooth, had eaten one of the roots of the deciduous tooth away, but it can absorb the root. On one side, the nerve's still alive in this deciduous tooth, and you want to keep it as a space maintainer. And so let's get in here. You can't see it good till you get into the x-rays. Now, there the tooth is. As the tooth is underneath there, under this crown was down under that tooth, something like that. And the root of this baby tooth was eaten away, but it had a root over on the other side that was good. It eats it away, and the nerve in the baby tooth is still alive. It absorbed that root, and it pulled that crown out from under there and pushed it back naturally. And when you make this loop in here, we had room up above. It wasn't chewing on it. So we made the loop upper part. In other words, you could come out of here. I'm going to make just a white screen here for a minute, and if I can get that up there. You've got a tooth down as something like this, and now here's a deciduous tooth that's setting up here, and it has eaten, actually this was further down, and it ate the root completely away from it here. You put the tube, or what you use on the side of this tooth, and you might have a bicuspid over here and another, or deciduous tooth. You don't care what it is. You can bond a wire on here, put something on here, put a little bond on this. And if you want to have another tooth in that, you can run it on over here and bond this. This wire can be an 016 or something like that, round wire, just any kind of wire, and bond it to the tooth. Those places are like that. Now, you've got room up here for this to raise up, but if you were going to occlude, you're going to occlude against it by your upper tooth coming in and up above, and you raise this up and you hit it. You might want to put the loop down. All right. Here's the way the spring is just made. You just go out like this, and if you're going to go up with it, you can put a couple of rings, and now you can push this wire, can come out like that. Now, when you activate this wire, let me draw that spring and have some space between it, like here, so you'll see. When you bring this wire up here, it tightens this spring. And so the spring wants to go down. I mean, in this particular case right here, you bring it, you put the wire in here, and the spring is in this area, and you go over here, and you raise the spring and put a hook in it right behind one of your bonds here. Now, as this tooth rises up, it's going to move in this direction, and so this wire is here when you start, and when you get the tooth raised up, the hook will be way over like that. Now let's go back and look at the tooth, and we see it the way we see it right there. Now you see this hook was here when we started. Let me see if I can get it back. All right, you see right here, the hook was right next to this bracket right here where we had bonded this wire. I didn't need a bracket. I could just bond that wire to the tooth. You don't have to have the bracket out here. All you need is a tube back here. Now, when the tooth rose up, this wire moved back, and this slid back. Now, if your upper tooth is going to hit that, it would have been better to make this come out and make it like this and come off, and that way you tighten the spring, and the spring works for you by loosening itself up. there's the two ways. You go up or down. If you don't have room up above, put the loop down below, but the loop has to be completely different from the upper loop. And I'm going to show that again and get back over here. Let me get a screen where I can show that to you. You just take a wire out like this. If you can go up with it, it's simple to do it like this and come over here. And then you put your hook in it where you need to. If you can't have room, or if you're afraid the upper tooth's going to hit this wire right here, then put the loop down. Now to make one down, you got to go out, turn down, and now make the loop coming over this way, and we're going to engage it in this tube that may be shaped like that. This may stick down too far, so you put it up in here, and this wire is inside this tube, and this loop comes out like that, and you're going right here. You may have to pick it up and put the hook in it and put it behind a bonded wire. You can just bond the wire here. This hook ought to go right behind the wire. And so when this tooth raises up, this will slide back. Now, God, I want everybody that's working on teeth to know how to do this. This ought to be something taught in the dental schools. I mean, everybody that does work on teeth ought to know how to do this. It's just so simple and easy to put in, and don't have. I've looked at some of the craziest things people are trying to do this. All they have to do is just take electrosurge, trim the tissue away from here or with whatever you want to, and then bond something on the side of the tooth. If I go back on this one more, you see this tooth was down in a kind of a hole. I don't know whether I think I did take away some of the tissue there and bonded that to the side of this tooth down here. And when you take this spring down here, you got to pull it up, and the spring is lifting the tooth up. As the tooth lifts up, the root is down in the bone. And so when this crown right here, this part of this crown was way down in this portion right here, and it came out of there and moved back, and the hook slid back with it. The roots were in bone structure, and I'm sorry that mess up here, but the roots were in the bone structure, and as the tooth raised up, it's easier to move in the air. The roots stayed pretty much where they were, and you back this tooth out. Now let me get back over here, and you're looking down on this tooth. Here the tooth is, right here. And here's the baby tooth, right there. And this tooth, the cells in the tooth, and here's where I took uncovered that so I could bond this hook on there. It looks complicated, but it's not. And I didn't need anything. Actually, you didn't even have to have anything hooked on this tooth right here. We did this wire is right in here, that we put on, and we bonded it on the baby tooth here, the baby tooth, and we bonded it. Now we could have not had any of these brackets, just stick the wire on the tooth, you see, and then you make your spring. Now this, when I insert this in here, this would stick down in the tissue. You measure where you need, and you put a hook on it, and that's the hook here. Now here I realize that could raise way up here, and look at where the upper teeth come down. If the upper tooth is not going to hit this spring, then put the spring up. That's the easiest way to bend this. If you feel like it is, then make the hook, the spring go down. It does the same thing. When you activate it, it tightens the spring up, and it wants to work. And now watch what it does to that tooth. And I don't give a darn who it is, where it is, what color you are, or anything else. This is the best way I've ever come up with to know. And this will be a good way to do this 100 years from now, regardless of what the we say we're half of what you know is going to be gone. That's not. This is going to be the same way. If it's not the best way to do this, somebody let me know. And if there's a better way to upright them, I'll teach that. But I want the whole world to know about this. If you're working on teeth, and if you're working on kids or adults, you ought to know how to do this. And you don't need to be a darn or full-fledged orthodontist to know how to do it. And you ought to be able to do it. So I'm going to insist on this. And why the pediatric schools are not teaching it is another thing. I don't understand that. I hope that some of them are. I don't mean to be fussing at them, but this is ridiculous that the pediatric dentists are not taught to do orthodontics. And these things can be done along the way as the person is developing. You can't send this child over to the orthodontist to get it done. The only way you do, you hire an orthodontist to work, maybe 3 or 4 pediatric dentists, hire some orthodontist there, but you have to train him what to do because they don't even teach him this in the schools, or at least the ones I've run into don't have to do it. Take electrosurge. Look how we cut the tissue away. I stuck a mirror in here so you could see that. Now, let's look at it under an x-ray. The child came in the office. I drew on the x-ray what I planned to do. I didn't need to put brackets on there, but we had the brackets and everything. You don't even think about it. All I had to do was just bond a wire here and here and here, and maybe catch another tooth. Here was the deal coming out. I thought I'd have to have it going down, but I didn't. I just made it up like this, and now you bend this up and hook it behind one of your bonds, because this is going to move back. This is going to move back as that happens. These roots are in the bone. I don't give a darn if the second molar's on top of it. It'll still shove the second molar back, and it'll shove the wisdom tooth back. But this teeth are baby teeth right there, and they're pretty stable. And that raise it up. Now watch that crown come out of there. Now here's a little bit into the treatment, and the crown has already moved away from that baby tooth. And let's look at whether it ate away the root of the baby tooth. But this does not kill the nerve in the baby tooth. It's still vital. It's what got one good root right here, and it's the best space maintainer you can possibly get, and you got to let this tooth have room to come up down in that second bicuspid. If you leave this alone till they're 12 years old, this tooth will go, and this tooth will come way out here somewhere, and you won't have anywhere for the second bicuspid to erupt into the mouth. It is absolutely foolish to tell somebody that they shouldn't do anything until they're 12 or 14 years old. It is ridiculous. This ought to be done when you see one of them done like this. Don't wait till you're 12 or 14. If you do, this tooth will be gone. This molar right here will be up in here somewhere. And very rarely, this is like a stitch in time saves 9, or whatever you want to do it early. Teach people how to do this when you first see one headed like that. And if we put a simple spring on the side of that tooth like that, just a wire spring, Now the loop can go up or down depending on how much room you're going to have. If you're going to hit it up here, put it down. And putting it down is a little more complicated because you go out, you bend it down, make the loop, and then you come over here. And that goes in this deal. But when you put it in here, this will be headed down. And so you got to figure out your distance where you're going to put the hook. And you put the hook right behind your bond or something, and then it's going to move back. Now watch this move back as we do this. It moved back. You see that hook right there? It was over here. Now it's back there. Well, from here, as it went back, let's follow it one more time. Now, there the tooth is. This upper loop that we had on there, it might miss, but it may come down and chew on that tooth. But we got it up there to start. This is eaten away. Here's your second bicuspid coming in underneath here. This will hold the space up. Now you keep a little force on this and tie something to it, and you can pull this tooth up to where it's right in here, like that, and the root will go around this baby tooth, this permanent tooth erupting, and when this is lost, this will fit right into this space. And everybody ought to know how to do it. This is so simple when you learn to do it a little bit. Trim the tissue away from it with whatever you want, your laser or your ectopically erupted. Now, we'll follow one more. There it's going. There's the loop. It's going down there, but I made one that was going up. Well, actually, this is turned over because your hook's on the wrong side. So this was up right here. Simple thing to put in there. Now, when I did this, this slid away, and that backed up. This is the tooth that was down in here when I started that. And when you first look at that, if you don't know a little bit about orthodontics, you think, well, you got to put something in there to prise it out. People stick wires and bend them over and do all sorts of ridiculous things when this is 100% pure. I have never seen a tooth we couldn't upright, whether it's a deciduous tooth, or we call it ectopically erupting, or it's a permanent tooth that's leaned over like this, and you want to set it up and pull it up here to close space where you lost the tooth in the middle right here. I don't have a whole lot of time left to see that this happens. I've been talking about it and showing it for most of my lifetime, and there's still people have not looked at it. They haven't thought about it or done it. They do ridiculous things in uprighting teeth like this. And that's the way I think it ought to be learned, and it ought to be done. And you see that tooth right there. There it is when it's set up. Now keep this pressure on it. See, this is trying to pull the root forward. Pull this up and kind of close the space in it, and you still have room for this tooth right here going back into this area where the root was already eaten away. These cells will eat this other part of this root away, and this bicuspid will open. It'll come in this area of the mouth, and this tooth will be over in this portion right there. Now, I know I've answered this question more than I need to, but there's a lot of people need to know this. And this one gentleman asked the question, and that's it. And there's your little girl, and she grew up with this tooth and it's just a pleasure to work on some child like this. We joked with her and kidded her, and then she just would come right back at us, everything, and we fixed this tooth up for her. And it has made orthodontics is a joy to work on people. So thank you for watching, and I want you to think about it. If you're interested in doing orthodontics, and get in there and learn it. And if you're a dentist, you're legally open to learn and do orthodontics. And you don't have to be a total orthodontist in everything, but you can do the things that you need to do and learn several of these things. And you watch these videos, I'll show you a whole stack of them that people doing young people's teeth ought to know, and the ridiculous schools that do not teach their pediatric dentists how to do orthodontics. That gets me. I do not know why on earth is the orthodontic department of the school so strong that they scare you away from doing this. Get in there and do it, regardless. That's what ought to be done.